General Hospital shock. Two fan favorites gone. Wes Ramsey explains the real reason. The clouds hung low over Port Charles as if the heavens themselves sensed a seismic shift coming. Inside General Hospital, chaos seemed unusually still, almost suspended in time. It was a quiet before the storm, but no one knew the storm would come from within. Carly Spencer, ever the warrior, stood by the window in her Metro Court office, staring out at the harbor. The coffee in her hand had long since gone cold, her thoughts drifting further and further from Sunny, from Drew, even from the mess with Nina. Something feels off, she muttered to herself. Meanwhile, Maxie Jones was on the 10th floor of General Hospital, organizing files for a marketing event that now felt oddly trivial. She had been feeling an itch, not the kind that comes from stress, but from destiny shifting beneath your feet. She glanced at a framed photo of herself and Nathan. You ever get the feeling, Nate, that everything's about to change again? And not in a good way. She had no idea how right she was. At Pier 55, a hooded figure stepped off a freight vessel, moving with practiced stealth. His eyes darted around as if expecting someone or something. Once hidden behind crates, he pulled off his hood. It was Peter August. Alive. Breathing. And seemingly sane? Time to finish what I started, he whispered. But this wasn't the vengeful Peter of the past. This Peter was calm, deliberate, his eyes carrying the weight of someone who had stared death in the face and decided to walk away from it. Peter wasn't here to torment Maxie. He was here because of something worse. Something deeper. A secret. Back at GH, Carly walked into the hospital with unusual urgency. A phone call had rattled her, one she received from an unknown number. All it said was, "You don't know who you're working for." Inside her gut, something twisted. Her instincts, sharp as ever, told her this wasn't just another threat. She marched to Anna Devane's office. "Anna, tell me I'm wrong, but do you know anything about someone digging into the hospital's funding sources?" Anna's face shifted from confusion to concern. "Why?" Carly hesitated. "Because someone's playing a game. A dangerous one. And it's tied to the hospital, and possibly to Maxie." Anna's mind began to race. She had already been digging into a shell corporation funding part of the new GH East Wing, and something about it screamed Faison. Or worse. Peter. Maxie had just dropped off a file when she heard a sound she hadn't heard in years. A voice. A tone. "I was always proud of how brave you were." She turned. Peter stood in the hallway. Maxie screamed and stumbled backward. A nurse rounded the corner and froze at the sight. Peter raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I swear." Maxie's eyes filled with fury and disbelief. "You're dead." Peter nodded solemnly. "I was. Or I was supposed to be. But they brought me back." "Who? Who the hell would bring you back?" Peter stepped closer slowly. "Not who you think. Maxie, I didn't come back for revenge. I came back because you're in danger. So is Carly. So is everyone." Anna, Carly, and Dante stood in a GH conference room staring at documents Peter had left behind after surrendering to the WSB in exchange for immunity. What they found stunned them. A secret organization called the Helix Order, rooted in biogenetic research and financial control, had quietly embedded itself into General Hospital through fake donors, off-the-book research programs, and personnel files. The Order's mission? Psychological control and DNA reprogramming, disguised as cutting-edge medicine. Maxie and Carly were unknowingly linked to it. Carly through Metro Court funding of GH expansions. Maxie through a gene therapy program that involved her daughter, part of a trial Maxie never consented to. The Helix Order had used Peter as a test subject. He survived their experimentation, broke free, and had been on the run since. "The hospital is compromised," Peter said in the room, cuffed, eyes hollow. "And they don't care who dies to keep the truth buried." Carly couldn't sleep. The weight of what she had learned bore down on her like 1,000 bricks. Every interaction, every Metro Court deal, it had all been manipulated by the Helix Order. But the final blow came when Diane brought her documents showing Carly's signature, forged on a transfer of GH assets to a private shell. They were trying to frame her. That night, Carly made a decision. She gave Donna to Michael, kissed her goodbye, and burned every last trace of her business dealings. She went to the pier, where Drew was waiting. But instead of rekindling their romance, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "Don't follow me. They won't stop if I stay." And, just like that, she vanished into the fog. Maxie's world had shattered. The program involving her daughter Georgie had been accelerated without her consent. The order had plans to enhance her daughter's emotional responses to make her more compliant, a trait being tested on select children in Port Charles. Maxie knew there was only one way out. She gathered her children and, with Spinelli's help, secured new identities. But before leaving, she did one last thing. She visited Peter. "Why did you come back?" she asked softly, her hatred dulled by confusion. Peter looked up from his cell. "Because they were going to take Georgie. I couldn't let that happen. Even after everything, she's still my daughter too." Maxie left Port Charles that night with nothing but the future in her hands. The next day, the town was reeling. Carly Spencer gone. Maxie Jones disappeared. Peter August back and in WSB custody. But the biggest shock came at a press conference where Wes Ramsey, the actor portraying Peter August, broke character to reveal the real reason for the departures of Laura Wright and Kirsten Storms. "This isn't just a story decision," Wes said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Laura and Kirsten both asked to leave. The truth is, they've been dealing with something deeply personal behind the scenes." He paused. There was an incident on set involving leaked scripts and altered storyline plans from an anonymous outside source, someone trying to sabotage the careers of certain actors and change the trajectory of General Hospital itself. Audience gasped. Reporters typed furiously. Both Laura and Kirsten decided that rather than allow their characters to be twisted beyond recognition by external forces, Wes continued, they would take the high road. They left not because they had to, but because they loved the show enough to go before it was ruined. He concluded with a warning. "Just as Peter returned to expose a secret in Port Charles, I'm standing here to say, there's a real-world Helix order out there, people trying to manipulate and control creativity for profit, without respect for the human stories involved." Laura and Kirsten didn't let that happen. They left with dignity. At Kelly's, Sam sat with Spinelli, stunned. At GH, Elizabeth and Finn exchanged quiet glances over Carly's empty file. Sonny stood on the rooftop of his penthouse, gripping the railing tightly, whispering her name into the night. At the Courtemain mansion, Michael read a letter Carly had left him. "If you're reading this, it means I made the choice to protect our family the only way I could by vanishing. Don't mourn me. Just promise me you'll raise Donna to be strong and kind. And that you'll keep an eye on the hospital. It's not over." As Port Charles reeled from the twin exits, a storm began to brew. At a private WSB facility, Peter was being transferred. Two masked agents whispered as they loaded him into a van. "He gave us everything," one said. "The order won't be able to touch us now." Peter sat silently, smiling to himself. Because he knew something they didn't. The Helix order wasn't finished. In fact, they had already planted their next operative in Port Charles. And she had just taken over the East Wing project. Her name? Dr. Eliza Vaughn. Specialty, Genetic Compliance Engineering. As the camera zoomed out, we saw Peter watching a news broadcast in the van. It was the teaser for a new GH storyline. Port Charles will never be the same. One gone. Two vanished. A ghost returned. And a new villain, already watching.